Architecture, it's like music, it's an art form. It brings joy into our lives. The spirit of poetry and the spirit of great music is free from purely objective things. So it should be in architecture. When I had my exhibition at MoMA, I wrote a manifesto called Anchoring in 1989 to those ideas that each building should be developed from its own site, circumstance, and culture. And it should have a unique idea that ties the phenomena of the building together. Well, I've written 5 different books. They're all in the same format, and they continue the ideas and develop them. They're really a continuum of the single manifesto that I wrote in Anchoring in 1989. The parallel reading of philosophy and poetry and literature while you're working as an architect is very important. When you're doing that, you fertilize your mind to have different ideas. The buildings are offerings in space and light and perspective, and they attempt to be a catalyst for how people could use them, but there's no way to give exact use. I think that use and the human experience is up to the individuals, and they transfer and change. If you make a great space, it can be used in many different ways. I don't believe in the modernist functionalities driving the design. I believe that the poetics of space, light, material, detail, they need to be standing on their own. Certainly, it must function, and certainly the program needs to be addressed, but it's not the driving force. There needs to be another idea, a poetic idea that drives the design. One of my favorite projects in terms of scale is the MIT dormitory, Simmons Hall in Boston. When you look at the building as a whole from a distance, it looks very large, but it's only 10 stories. It looks like 30 stories. And then when you get up close, you realize that the windows are only 2 feet and every room has 9 windows. What it achieves also is a very mysterious reading of how big it is. And I think that mystery is really something joyful. We just finished the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston based on the big Texas sky and the clouds and how light could come in. And I called the top of the building a luminous canopy. That light comes in cracks and slides across the bottom of these cloud-like formations. So light is very important in that building. And I think every museum that you make, the possibility of natural light is very important. My project in Chengdu called Slice Porosity Block is all about bringing the sunlight to the street and to the adjacent houses. So the building is sliced by the diagram of the angle of the sun. That's how it gets its shape. Light is very important in the city. Lucan said program is just so many bananas. It's what the architect brings to the project that isn't about program. We want new kinds of space. I believe in architecture that's inventive. I believe we constantly invent. That's what creative essence of humanity is. And we're going to invent our way into an optimistic future. I think you should not making literal images of geometry that's regional. You should do it with historical ideas or any kinds of more in-depth ideas that could embody certain principles and find a new way to express them. And I think the Baogua and Yin Yang of the Tianjin Ecology Museum does that. Totally new shapes, 2 buildings that were in relation to one another with great interiors and amazing spaces, and a relationship, not a literal relationship, a conceptual relationship to region and culture. That's a very important challenge. And I think we have to find ways that we can restore the natural landscape and preserve it, especially globally, and build our cities with better ecological frames, with green space. Every project that I've done here in Round Lake vicinity has a frog pond. In the wintertime, it freezes, the frogs are underneath. And when the water thaws out, the frogs come out in the spring again. It's a cycle of life. And that's a miniature thing that you can do in any project. I'd like to see more ecological invention in the city and on an urban scale, and more preservation of the natural landscape. In the future, I think architects have to be optimistic. The world is full of pessimists today. As a builder and a creator of future things, one of the key things you need to cultivate optimistic ideas. I do believe that we have a future that we can create.